I don't doubt for a moment that Putin and a lot of people on the Russian side genuinely did feel an element of NATO pushing its luck, encroaching too far, representing a threat to Russian security.
So in this clip, Dave Smith is going to come in. When it comes to Ukraine and Russia, Dave Smith is definitely on it. Dave Smith knows how to shut down any kind of argument about Ukraine and Russia when it comes to that. And Dave Smith is on Piers Morgan panel. Dave Smith is going to obliterate the panel with facts about Ukraine and Russia. And it is funny to hear Piers Morgan finally admit about the NATO encroachment. Like, why does it got to take y'all 3-4 years to get to like the point where we could have saved a lot of lives if we were honest about that? It's actually quite disgusting. But all right, let's get into it.
I'm sure they do believe that, but that doesn't give them the justification to, as I see it, illegally invade a sovereign democratic European country. And nor do I believe that that is the only motivation for it. I think that Putin's actions in the last 2 decades make it crystal clear that he very much regrets the breakup of the Soviet Union. And if he got the chance, he'd very much reform it.
Well, I don't think that Putin has really expressed that he would reform the Soviet Union. He certainly has lamented the fall of the Soviet Union and the former greatness of the Russian Empire. But just a few points here, because number one, I do think the most important thing for me to say is that I strongly disagree with our Russian guest here, who described this as a defensive war or a war of necessity. I mean, I think that's just factually not true. This was a war of choice, and it was a war of aggression. And even though it is laughably absurd to call it unprovoked, Vladimir Putin still did make the choice to launch this war, and he is responsible for the enormous amount of human suffering that has come as a result of it. That being said, the defenses here and the responses are laughable. I mean, I was actually chuckling when you said, you're needling him for not calling it a war rather than a special operation. Piers, the last time the U.S. declared war was World War II. Legally speaking, every single war since then, the legal defense for it is that it's not a war, it's a military action. Vietnam, Iraq, Serbia, Afghanistan, all the ones you could think of were not declared wars. So that's a little bit rich. And look, the fact is that Vladimir Putin made it crystal clear that Ukrainian entry to NATO was his red line. And this point about Finland's in there now, irrelevant. He never said that was his red line. He said Ukraine was. And it is a fact that in the Bucharest summit in 2008, NATO announced Ukraine was coming in. It is a fact that U.S. politicians kept pushing this over and over and over again for years against the warnings of Vladimir Putin and the entire Russian establishment. And it is a fact that the National Endowment for Democracy and the USAID poured close to $100 million into the Maidan Revolution. And if we can't be honest with ourselves and look back at this and go, why on earth were we constantly, look, I'm not Russian, I'm not Ukrainian, I'm American. I care about my country as you guys should care about yours. But we should ask ourselves why on earth we embarked in the policy of needling Putin over and over and over again when he had very realistic demands. Stoltenberg, the former head of NATO, said, he admitted that Vladimir Putin sent him a draft treaty in 2022 before he invaded the country, or late 21, and all he asked was that we put in writing that Ukraine will not be brought into NATO.
So then why did you start your argument with, oh, this is all Putin's fault? Like, this is what I don't like what Dave Smith does. And he's actually never done that before with this topic. I believe that the criticism is getting to him. I don't know. I don't have time for it. It's, like, come on. Somebody keeps asking for peace, asking for, listen, this is my red lines. These are my, these are my demands in this situation. Let's have a diplomatic discussion. And everybody is still usurping the situation or subverting or doing whatever. After a while, the person's just going to retaliate. Now, sadly, a lot of people have been killed in this thing. And it's so disgusting because, again, it's like people just act like that's nothing, yo, man. Like almost 1 million, I don't want to say numbers because then they're going to get me. This is terrible. This is terrible. And our establishment's hand is all involved with it. It's bad.
Who on earth can look back at this and say we shouldn't have at least attempted to pursue a path where we would give him that a security guarantee? And look, it's nice, as the Ukrainian lady here says, it's a nice thought to say that sovereign countries can do whatever they want to, but the bottom line is that is not the way of the world. Mexico cannot join a military alliance with China. That's a fact. And the general here will be the first to admit it. We wouldn't just go, oh, you're a sovereign country, sure, you can be a part of Russia or China's military alliance. We wouldn't allow that in a second. And likewise, it is in the state of actual geopolitics, it was a reasonable demand for Vladimir Putin to say, you cannot bring Ukraine into your military alliance. And we should have put that in writing a long time ago. And I believe there's a very good chance that this war never would have happened.
General Kimmett, do you agree with Dave Smith there?
Well, I agree with parts of it. It's true that in return for Ukraine giving up its nuclear weapons after the fall of the wall, that the United States agreed that Ukraine would not be part of NATO. In fact, we said that we wouldn't expand NATO to the east. But all of those agreements, of course, have been violated by the Russians as well. I just kind of like to go back to what I thought was the right
But who started violating agreements first? What are you saying?
point, which is the notion that the Russian view that the West is coming to take over Russia is laughable and Kafkaesque. I was in Germany when the wall fell in 1989, and you couldn't drive from west to east because of all the cars coming across from the Warsaw Pact, the workers' paradise, the Soviet Socialist republics. People were voting with their feet, and they weren't voting to go east. I was able to get into the Warsaw Pact, and I've been into Russia. My question would be, who the hell would want to take over Russia? It's a declining nation. The average life expectancy is going down. The standard of living is 1/2 of that of the West. You can say we're going for the oil, but
I usually don't. So these people, what happens is, like I said, I really just believe that Dave Smith made a lot of great points, but, he just also kind of sits there and disagrees to everything else. Nobody said that they were going to have, okay, the discussion that's told to us, we should flip it on the inverse. Russia's not coming here to take over. You know why? And I know that sounds simplified. It's like, but come on. I have to be careful because you got to be careful how you talk about these things. But my goodness, the fear mongering has been so annoying with these warmongers. They warmongers and everything. And it's funny how now, we could talk about the Maidan coup, but I remember when this started in 2022. This particular instance started in 2022, and I brought it up, and I was chastised for bringing it up. Y'all remember? I don't know if y'all remember on Twitter when everybody was tripping. It's Kyiv. It's not Kiev. It's Kyiv, and all this. We stand with Ukraine, and everybody. God, I could not believe all the stupid black people had Ukraine flags. I said, what the hell? This is crazy. It's like put chip in and stand with whatever. So I just want America to be America. I'll see you guys at the next one. Bye.